In this episode, I try to exercise my creative muscles as I talk about how I use inspiration from books and films to create ideas for campaigns, and how I create NPCs so they have enough life to live, but I feel I haven't wasted my time if the party passes them by. Welcome to the Mythras Matters podcast, Season 1, Episode 78, Creating from Inspirations and Easy but Believable NPCs. Hello and welcome to Mythras Matters, a podcast dedicated to the Mythras rule set and all its supplements. As always, I am your host, Inwils, and welcome to February. The year is already well underway, and I hope you are enjoying all your sessions, campaigns, and creations. Whether you are creating a campaign, a new rule set, or even a new character concept, creativity plays an important role in all our role-playing experiences. Personally, I've never seen myself as a creative person, lacking the ability to draw, paint, or create music. I am constantly envious of what I see as the creative people in this world. They can draw or paint their imagination to share with others, or write words that allow the reader to connect with the main character in the book and get a sense of their emotions and motives. Even musicians can create a soundtrack that builds tension or instill fear into the listeners. Lacking all of these skills often hinders what I would like to create or share with my players. If you are like me, you might stumble over the words you use or provide vague descriptions that lack depth, fall into stereotypical plot lines and NPCs. Your players enjoy your campaigns and give you positive feedback, but there's always something lacking that comes from people describing things that are a true creative. They say that creativity is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. At the right old age of 59, I think it is a bit late in life to start learning to draw or to learn multi-track music production. But that doesn't mean I have to give up on being creative. I think my creative urge lies in the creation of campaigns, NPCs, and plot lines. Through these, I can hopefully provide an arena for players to play their characters, and although I might not be able to paint the scene or add incredible music, I can create the foundation of a world that they are adventuring in and let them bring their characters and their journey to life in their own imaginations. So at the beginning of the year, I've decided not to dwell on the negative, but to embrace the positive and exercise my creative muscles with RPG creation. Initially, I decided to take inspiration from fiction, films, and other people's creations. I find that these ignite my imagination and spark my creative muscles. I always need to remind myself not to just copy the ideas, since this just results in cries of copyright from my players, or the words, "This reminds me of." I'm trying to understand instead why I like the concept in the book and then develop it further. I don't want to spoil the next adventure for my players, but I feel like an example will provide a better understanding of what I'm trying to do, rather than my own somewhat clumsy words. I'm currently listening to an audiobook called Blood Song by Anthony Ryan. In the book, there are orders controlled by aspects. Each order has a different role: combat, knowledge, healing, etc. Now, it would have been very easy just to take all of this and slip it into my next campaign, but I felt I needed to unpick what it was about these orders that appealed to me. After some time, I came to the conclusion that I liked the concept of the orders because of this sense of belonging. Members of the order are willing to protect and serve the mission statements and values of the order. I already have sorcerer orders in my Mythras campaigns, but I feel I've created these incorrectly. When I first created these, my focus was to split the spells up so not everyone had rack. But I understand now that I should have focused on the sense of belonging and maintaining the feel of each order. Chatting to Doug and Matt about animist orders really brought this to life for me. And so when creating my orders for the new city in my campaign, my focus will be on values and actions rather than just how they influence the mechanics of the game. The sense of belonging also made me think about passions and how members of the order are required to have one and maintain their commitment. Deviating from this could result in them being removed from the order permanently. This further fueled the feeling that orders are not about game mechanics. They're about actions and interactions that would have to be made apparent by the characters, even down to the words they use. In the book, members of the Sixth Order always refer to each other as brothers. They have no family save for the order. Belonging to an order would therefore impact the game much more than just relating it to rules and dice rolls. How the orders interacted with each other was another aspect that I enjoyed reading about. It wasn't because they opposed or were opposed by each other. It was more of how their strengths were celebrated. A fighting order seems to be the strongest and the best order to be a member of, until you realize that the members of the healing order are somehow stronger. They have little or no judgment and continue to be healers despite possibly being weak and fragile. Their mental commitment and passion shines out from the pages, and the combat orders even recognize this difference. Two orders can be complete opposites, but still possess similar values that are just communicated in different ways. For me, this would provide so much depth and challenge for a player. Can I maintain those values even when everything is stacked against me? As the story progressed and my thinking deepened, I realized that the orders depend on each other. Initially, this was not apparent, but the more I read or listened about them, the more I realized that the order's true strength came from unity. It was as if each order were experts in their own paths, but when they came together, they became something with much greater strength, understanding, and values than the individual parts. Not only did they become something stronger together, they relied on each other and so had to trust and work together. Finally, and I don't want to spoil the story, there are the possibilities of hidden orders or dark orders. Orders that the world or city has thought gone, banished, or destroyed. They don't have to be evil or even powerful. It is a feeling that there is something else beneath the concept that exists in the game. This hidden order could be something from a backstory of a character, or even something that the party finds. It got me thinking about why the hidden order might be banished and why they still exist or remain hidden. On a completely side note, it was at this point that I started to have an idea for a campaign when all the players choose one order and they played this as a party together. So they were all members of different orders in the same campaign. What fun would that be? Although I love the concept of the orders, what I need to do next is somehow take what I like about the concept of them and somehow apply it to my campaign. The feeling of belonging, the interaction, the support, working together, and some hidden mystery. As you can imagine, I've got a long way to go, but as I mentioned in the beginning, this is the purpose of the activity, to exercise my creative muscles. So perhaps you are in a similar position on your creative journey. And if you are, I strongly recommend this approach. It is allowing me to acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, despite the lack of drawing, choice of words or musical talent, I may be a creative person. Continuing the idea of creation, I have to say that last month's episode on sorcery with Doug really sparked my imagination as well. In fact, it was his words that probably ignited the shift in my creative journey. I have spent a lot of hours thinking about sorcery in my campaign, as well as reading his excellent blog posts. I have already created, in my mind only, 2 new groups of sorcerers for my new campaign area, and I'm looking forward to putting my ideas down in writing and then using them to interact with my players. In a similar way that I looked at the mystics when I created the idea of dream walkers on my YouTube channel, I have not focused purely on combat when I created these new sorcery orders. I think this has given me more ideas of how they will interact with the players and maybe even tempt the current sorcerers to stray from their own order ideals, or even those hefty fighters to leave their combat training and start to wield the power of magic. That is one of the joys of Mythras. You can mix and match skills and even change your mind after character generation. It is like the ultimate multi-class system, which for me is simply heaven. Remember, if you would like to contribute to the podcast, then why not drop me an email or message and let me know what you would like to cover. We're always looking for reviews or chats with people. So if you are interested, you can email me at inwils@gmail.com or send me a message on the forums or on the Discord. A great episode about using virtual tabletops will be coming up real soon. Continuing the focus on creativity, I have to say that I rarely have the opportunity to create characters and play them in campaigns. Although I've had the chance to play characters when other people have GM'd for us, for example, Loz, Dan and Mike, and huge thanks for doing this for me or us, I have played pre-generated characters, so I've never had the opportunity to create a character from scratch and then see it develop through adventures. This has created some problems for me as a GM, one of which several people have pointed out to me as they watch my actual plays. It would appear, and I assure you I don't do this on purpose, that my opponents rarely damage or hinder the party, especially in Mythras. Now, although there are other reasons why this might happen, for example, the players being great at playing their characters, I think not playing characters myself means that I'm not 100% sure of their strengths and weaknesses. To try and remedy this, I have created a new breed of monsters for our Mythras campaign based on the chaos beasts in the core rulebook. Taking inspirations from the Dragonland series of novels, I now have some powerful opponents that gradually get more and more powerful. My aim is not to destroy the party, but more to see how powerful they really are and what sort of opponent I can throw at them. Coupled with this, I am starting to add spellcasters to the mix so that I can start to learn the nuances of spell casting and how these work in the game. I know the rules, but the lack of experience of casting spells myself in combat or encounters is hindering me. I hope that this will start to challenge the players again and make it so they are more wary of what might be hiding in the shadows. Once I get a better understanding of the systems, I think I will be able to become more creative with my encounters and the actions that the party's opponents take. And, of course, I will be adding something that, again, many of you have commented about. The new opponents will have luck points. My time to reverse all my rolls to make them criticals and get the party to re-roll those high-hitting attacks. I am really looking forward to it, and I know my players will love the challenge and will rise to the occasion. And, of course, they can always create new characters if their current ones meet a nasty demise. Although I rarely get to create characters, I do get to create NPCs on a regular basis, and I wanted to share how I go about this and how some very simple notes can change an NPC from a nobody into a somebody that the players learn to either love or hate. When creating an NPC, my first thought is how permanent will this NPC be? At the lowest level, I call these incidental NPCs. These are people that the characters will probably only meet or interact with once now and again. So it might be the store owner in the village that the party are staying in for a couple of nights, or even the guard that they see once on patrol while leaving the tavern late at night. These incidental NPCs are also the ones that I have to create on a moment's notice when the party decides to talk to someone. For example, in the recent M space, the party decided that they wanted to head over to the mechanics to see if they could find out whether they knew who had sabotaged their racing grav vehicle. These sorts of NPCs rarely even get a name, and I create the voice on the spur of the moment. At this point, just a pause to say that I realise that my character acting skills leave a lot to be desired. So even though I think all my voices are different and have many layers to them, they probably all sound like a stereotypical farmer from an English countryside or a pirate. Apart from Zach's epic unit that I use a voice modifier for. The next level of NPCs are the adventure-specific ones. These are people that I know the party will be interacting with and need to advance the story, but will disappear and probably just be a fond memory for the party once the adventure has finished. For these NPCs, I provide them with more detail, which I will talk about later on. I copy and paste these NPCs into the sidebar of my World Anvil page so that I can see them all the time. An example of this level NPC will be the owner of the Starfall Pleasure Dome in the recent M-Space adventure. The final and the highest level of NPC is the reoccurring ones that I create to become an integral part of the campaign. An example of these would be the cartographer Sylvester McCoon in the Mythras campaign, who continues to return to make fun of the party and to engage with some verbal fencing as they try to gain the information they need. I have to say that at this point that although I give the NPCs a level when I create them, the players can often advance the NPC level at a moment's notice. Suddenly someone will make the guard that they just passed their best friend and contact, and I will have to frantically try to give them an appropriate name and elevate their rank. One of the advantages of having all my adventures on World Anvil is that I can search for the name of the NPC and make them more permanent. Once I've decided on the level of the NPC, I make a mental note to try and avoid any stereotypes. I try to avoid buxom blondes in low-cut blouses for tavern maids, or old slow-moving butlers that are bent over and called Alfred. Next up are the names, personality traits, and the actions of the NPCs. I never want to spend a huge amount of time on this, and my general dislike for backstories means that providing a detailed family history for them is definitely not on my to-do list. To make things simple and manageable, I create a simple table for all my NPCs. The title of the columns are name, role, key traits, and motivation. I use a generator to provide the name and like to keep all my names to be similar in the campaign. For example, in the M space, I like to give them all surnames that relate to the atmosphere of the campaign. For example, the owner of the club might be called Gerald Starfall, while the local pilot, Petra Afterburner. You get the idea. If I'm giving a name to villagers, I tend to give them just one name, like Ham for the blacksmith's son, or Berry for the local herbalists. And although these are not NPCs, with planets I give them the system name and a number. For example, Davy in the Levito system, and they have 3 planets, so I just call them Davy 1, Davy 2, and David 3. And if I start to develop the planet more, I give it another name. For example, Davy 2 is also called the Sinwell. The role of the NPC could be anything from their job title to their role when they interact with the party. For example, lying guard or honest rogue. Key traits can be anything from the words that describe their personality to how they will interact with the party. Examples for this column would be words like confident, abrupt, passionate, and even keen. If you are looking to generate personality traits randomly, then I noticed that there was an excellent list on Clarence's newsletter. In this column, I try to add something to remind me about the voice I have to use. I tend not to write these at first, but add them when I play the character. Even then, I'm sure that the voices change from session to session, but my players are very forgiving. The motivation column is something that I've added recently. I wanted to add depth to the NPCs by thinking about what they were doing on the world and what they were trying to achieve. Although this doesn't tell me how they would sound, it did provide me with some indication about how they would act or respond to players' interactions. This column always changes for the more permanent NPCs as their motivations change throughout the campaign. If the party annoys them, then they might seek revenge or will be willing to tell the local guards where the party are hiding, or the complete reverse if they have been kind and considerate to them. The classic example of this was Melanie in the Mythras campaign, who started off as one of the Bluebird messengers, part of the Blue Order of Sorcerers. She was keen to advance the ranks in the Blue Order, but after Cyrus, who is from the Red Order, made fun of her, she switched and started to gain ranks in the same order as Cyrus. With Cyrus' motivational words, she even gained a higher rank than Cyrus, and then stole the Grimoire with her partner. A whole adventure arc was created as the party chased them over the sea to the new location of Windvine. I'm not an artist, so I usually use some of the tokens that I've gained via my subscription to Roll20 for NPC tokens, but I do sometimes add details about how they will present themselves. However, most of the time I just generate looks on the spur of the moment from looking at their key traits. I've learnt the hard way about putting too much detail into an NPC just to find that the party doesn't even talk to them. I consider NPCs to be an essential part of any campaign, and I enjoy creating them and possibly using my playing skills to make them real for the players. Some NPCs have become household names in the campaigns I run, and I enjoy listening to the players reminiscing about the people and their interactions with them. But for me, I always want to ensure that I create them with enough detail to make them believable and consistent, but not to feel I have wasted time if the party only gives them a passing glance. I hope hearing how I create NPCs has provided you with some ideas for your own campaigns. And as ever, please do let me know in the comments if you have any ideas or strategies that you use to bring your NPCs alive. And that's it. Another episode of Mythras Matters completed. Don't forget you can check out all my content by following my YouTube channel and the campaign areas on World Anvil. If you would like to support my creator career, then check out my adventures, encounters and the fanzine Animated Dead, all available for download on my Ko-fi page. So until next time, have a great month of gaming, and I will chat to you all again in March. Until then, I hope all your opposed rolls succeed and provide you with a well-deserved special. Thanks for listening, everyone. See ya. Bye. The content of this podcast is covered by the Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license, so please give appropriate credit if you are sharing or copying any part of this podcast. Thank you.